In today's episode of Canon Bomb, we will be looking mainly at the Essential Reader's Companion by Pablo Hidalgo. This source was provided to me by the wonderful Alora at OG Star Wars. So go subscribe unless you're afraid of the boogeyman. In this passage, Pablo Hidalgo addresses the canon and continuity of Star Wars, stating, "The most definitive canon of the Star Wars universe is encompassed by the future films and television products in which George Lucas is directly involved." So, George's canon is what Leland Chee, the keeper of the holocron, revealed as G-canon in the hierarchy tier system, as he was hired to maintain continuity. He also shared that G-canon was simply movie canon, and the expanded universe is everything in non-film media. So Pablo said the defining canon is George's movies, which are the pillars everything has to adhere to. This is mirrored in the Star Wars Encyclopedia from 1998, where Steve Sansweet answered what is canon. The sure answer is George's movies, and he summarized everything else as quasi-canon, which we know is tiered, as an in-house way of keeping track of it. In the Star Wars year-by-year visual chronicle, the encyclopedia is described as the definitive reference book of its time. It collects the elements introduced into Star Wars canon by 2 decades of expanded universe publishing. Hidalgo goes on to say, George Lucas allows for an expanded universe to exist parallel to the one he directly oversees. Those who spread anti-EU rhetoric will claim parallel means an alternate universe. This is false. Not only is that not what parallel means, but it makes perfect sense, especially when looking at the full context, because context matters. Feel free to check out my video covering this topic. George's Cinescape quote is another which detractors like to take out of context. He refers to the EU as the parallel universe that doesn't intrude on his movies, but intrudes between them. This was also clarified by Leland Chee, who elaborated on George's statement. So the EU can't contradict his movies. Continuity was the main directive it tightly followed.
And we knew that to have all these different writers writing new stories in different media, we had to lay down some ground rules. And the most important rule was something called continuity. All these stories had to be consistent with the movies, but also consistent with each other. Otherwise, the integrity of the mythology would be stripped away.
That quote also stated that George isn't too involved. Well, that's not true either. Along with all the evidence and sources of George's involvement with the EU, myself and others have shared, Pablo Hidalgo confirmed this fact when he states, "Those who work for the licensing division of Lucasfilm ask for his input and blessings on projects." Some people also think George was separate from his own company and its divisions, which is wild. The idea that everyone there just did whatever they wanted is insane. George was the boss. It all went through him. The expanded universe was official, and they had George's approval. But this video isn't about George's contributions to the EU. To further stress my point, George Lucas stated that those who expand his universe work for him, but he can't follow up on everything they produce. He can keep everything in line with the movies, but not the whole Star Wars universe. He trusted licensing to maintain the integrity of the mythology, as showing when he stated that Howard Rothman was responsible for filling in the gaps. In fact, he called Rothman the Son in his Star Wars Holy Trinity. Here Rothman explains.
George has been quoted, he said the 3 pillars of Star Wars are himself, you, meaning marketing, and the fans. Does your role with Lucasfilm licensing really require you to create Star Wars canon and fill in the blanks for George? How does that all work?
What that meant was that, George is well in control of the movies and the TV shows, and that's his world. So he calls himself the father. Mm-hmm. And the world outside of that is way too big for him to personally supervise. And he's entrusted that to me, and he calls me the son in that holy trilogy.
Leland Chee also stated that G and C canon are one continuity. Going on to explain, Star Wars has proven itself over the years to be a singular universe. Everything outside of the films collectively known as the expanded universe, serving as an extension of the same universe as the films. If something happened in a book or comic, it could potentially affect everything else happening in the universe. Any discrepancies would be resolved through retcons to create consistency. Hidalgo says, these stories don't enter George's canon, which is the movies, as we've explained, unless they are depicted cinematically in one of his projects. Unless something occurs in one of George's projects to directly contradict a published source, it can reliably be said to have occurred. So as long as an EU publication does not contradict George's movies, then it is part of the Star Wars canon.
It's official, it's part of the official canon, everything is canon, the novels, the comics, the video games, it's all there.
First of all, when we were writing those books, we were told we were writing canon. So at that time, we were creating canon. And so anybody who says they were never canon is just incorrect.
It was all canon. Everything published was canon.
Everything was bound by his movies because he retained creative control. That's how it operated. George Lucas said, "The expanded universe is an amazing legacy of Star Wars that so many gifted writers are contributing new stories to the saga." Not to mention he literally told licensing to write sequels as he knew he would never make them. And stated that the original saga was about the father, the children, and the grandchildren, as shown in the novels.
The original saga was about the father, the children, and the grandchildren. And I mean, that's not a secret to anybody. It's even in the novels and everything.
This is not debatable. The expanded universe is undeniably part of the Star Wars canon. So grab a book now and dive in. Let's take your first step into a larger world. The world of Star Wars.
Well, today there's over 5,000 characters. It's very big. And, you know, we have lots of novels, lots of comic books, lots of games, and the movies and TV series. And, you know, there's a whole world of Star Wars now that didn't exist.
So is there a book we could all buy so we can know where they were born, who their parents were, what their special powers are, what their neurosis?
There's a lot of them. You know, there's got to be at least 24 encyclopedias. And there's encyclopedias to characters, or encyclopedias to aliens, encyclopedia to droids, to spaceships. And then there's like the complete Star Wars encyclopedia, which is in 4 volumes. Big, you know, it looks like the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it's just like it. It's got, you know, just got thousands and thousands of entries.